All right, today's quick tip is don't accept small accounts without a monthly draft. Or, to say it a different way, is use a small account or use the fact that an account is a small account as a way to get a monthly draft. And that comes down to having standards, which is one of our epiphanies, but specifically we're talking about the monthly drafts today. So you've heard me talk a lot about many people, many advisors, actually all advisors should be doing more small bread and butter accounts, whether it's just a term policy, a living trust, 529 plans, Roth IRAs, minor IRAs, many more minor IRAs. Very important to do. I believe in that. You're going to get in the field. You've got to look at the experience. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that you could do 100 small accounts and it won't equal $1 million variable annuity, as an example. Okay. But there's more to it than just a revenue, so that's small accounts are important. But having said that, one aspect of small accounts is that they are small and the revenue isn't much. But by adding an automatic monthly draft, we call that PAC, pre-authorized checking, EFT, electronic fund transfer, whatever you want to call it, is a way to get a consistent income. And studies have also shown that clients that are actively adding money to an account will stay with you longer and listen to your advice more than ones that don't. So for example, someone adding $100 a month for 10 years, that's $12,000, versus someone who invests $12,000 and doesn't add money, those are not the same client. They may have the same revenue for you, forget about the time value of money, but just from a dollar standpoint, the same revenue, but they're not the same client. The first one is what I call an active client, the second one is a passive client, even though your revenue is essentially the same, okay? Because they're actively adding money to it, okay? So one thing you can do is having small accounts. And what is a small account? You decide that. But I would say at least 10,000. You may say, well, 5,000 if you want. But I would say 10,000 is anything, in other words, anything less than $10,000 I would consider a small account. There is no technical definition for it, but that's what I would consider. Maybe even higher, maybe even 25,000. One of the nice things about using 25,000, that's the first break point. So you can kind of keep everything consistent. So here's what I recommend that you do. Okay, this is part of having standards. So let's just go with a 25,000 because that's the break point. So you say to the prospect, but by the way, especially something less than like a fully funded IRA, especially that level. Okay, if someone can't put $5,500 in to open the account and get the whole year done, you've got to add a monthly draft. What you do is you make it a requirement. It's a standard. Just like, so what you would do is you would say, look, Mr. Client, I'd be glad to open up the account for you for $1,000, but it's going to require a minimum automatic monthly draft of $50, which is the minimum per fund. Is $50. And we talked about how you can have one monthly draft for $50, but actually have multiple funds. That's a whole other conversation. There's a little trick to doing that. That's how you express it. You make it a minimum. They go, I can't afford $50 a month. I'm sorry. Honestly, I can't. They won't let me open up an account. See, there are actual minimums, right? With American funds, the minimum for a qualified account is $250. The minimum for a monthly draft is $50. You can't do a monthly draft for $48. And it's $50 per fund. So if you have multiple funds and you want to do a draft into each fund, remember there's a way to get around that, but if that's what you want to do, if you have 3 funds, 3-fund approach, and you want to do a monthly draft, that's $150. You can't do 149. That's a hard limit. And so when you're talking to a client or when this comes up, you say, hey, it's not me, it's them. They'll reject the paperwork, right? You have no problem saying that to your prospect because it's a hard limit that you have no control over, right? You don't feel bad. You have to have that philosophy with yourself. You have to almost put like your own, like you have to wear 2 different hats. The CEO of your business hat, and the CEO of the advisor. And you got to remember that back over the weekend when you were making rules for your business, when you were acting as the CEO and laying down the law, talking to yourself about building your business, you have to remember what those rules were when you're out in the field. That's how you psychologically compartmentalize that, okay? So you say, listen, I can't open up an account that's under 25,000. Let's say it's the number. 10,000, 5,000, pick a number. that doesn't have an automatic monthly draft. I've also frankly found over the years that clients that don't do that don't stick with it. And between you and me, guys, if it's a small account and you don't get a $50 a month pack, it's really not worth it. But the pack is worth it because now, again, the client is an active client, which means they're much more likely to potentially add more money or keep you in their framework so that when they do get that inheritance or they win the lottery, that's not going to happen. But or they get a bonus at work, or they get a better job, or they leave a job. You want to be in the forefront. And one of the ways, not the only way, one of the ways is to have an automatic monthly draft because they see it. They go, okay, that's right. That's my investment. That's my investment. That's my investment. The other reason is, frankly, it builds your recurring revenue. Right? So the great thing about this particular principle or aspect of the principle, which is set standards, that's really the principle this is operating under. One of the great things about this one, though, is why don't you try? You have nothing to lose. So what if a client or prospect rejects you and says, well, I can't do $50 a month for screw the whole thing. Honestly, so what? It was a $1,000 account. Seriously? You see what I mean? This is not the one. This is a great experiment for you if you have had a hard time setting standards, setting guidelines with other people, maybe not just in the business, maybe that's not in Parsonex, but with other people in general. This is because there's not a lot of risk, right? It's not like you're telling the $1 million client that if they don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to walk away. So this is a great one to do it. So I would set a standard. I would either pick the lowest. I said 10,000 earlier. I meant to say the lowest is 1,000. I would not do, right? But I still think it's too low. Maybe you do the IRA minimum, or maybe you apply the IRA minimum, 5,500 as of right now, if it's an IRA, right? You also may, I also be honest with you, if the client as a whole has over 25,000, maybe they got an IRA rollover, 401k, it's 80,000, and now they want to open up this fourth account that happens to be an old Roth that they don't even qualify more. Actually, I have that exact situation happening right now. They're rolling over 2 Roths from a couple that makes over $500,000 a year now. They can't contribute to it. No, I'm not going to make them do a draft. Not only because they can't contribute anyway, but even if they could, they have other money with me. I'm talking about opening up small accounts where you have these small clients that there's hardly any revenue. So you might say an aggregate. You might say something like, this might be the rule that you're going to set for yourself. If the client as a whole doesn't have $25,000 with me, under my management, invested, total, meaning they qualify for the first breakpoint in American funds, then at least one account has to have a monthly draft. That would maybe be the baseline that I would maybe encourage you to consider. So that's it. Hope it helps you. Feedback is welcome.